Another year just like that. This year has been one of the most incredible years I've ever had when it comes to running. From the first starting line to the final finish, this was a year of pushing limits, experiencing disappointment, yet also experiencing happiness with the friends and achievements I've made. I thought this 2024 year was a year of relentless climbs, growth, resilience, and unforgettable moments, and so I just wanted to wrap up this year to reflect how each race and mile ran really represents more than the distance I ran, but about overcoming challenges, finding strength through friends and family, and embracing the journey. 16 races across roads, trails, and mountains. From the thrill of a 5K to the endurance of an ultra marathon. Each race really told its story. Running isn't just about the finish line, but it's about every mile and training that goes before it. The early mornings, the tough days, the victories, big and small. It's the journey that really makes it count. It all started with a little magic at the RunDisney half marathon in January, a 13.1 mile race with Aaron around the happiest place on earth at Disneyland. It started early at around 5:45 a.m. in the morning, and though it was only a short 4 to 5 miles within the park itself, and probably a bit more hectic for my liking, it was still an enjoyable race as I had raced this not as an all-out race, but a nice marathon workout session. Next up was the SOCAL River Marathon 10K, held at the beginning of March. A shorter race, but no less exciting, as this was a pretty spontaneous sign up for me and the last 10K time trial race for the marathon training block, and a race that I ran for the first time with my good friend Johan as well as Aaron. It was a small local race where we both placed second and third respectively overall in the race, but definitely had to work for it as the weather during this run was definitely ruthless. Nonetheless, I got the work in and it was a memorable race I had with Johan. 2 weeks later, the big day came as the past 12 weeks of training was for this very moment of attempting to break 3 hours at the LA Marathon. The journey up until this very moment was brutal and was probably the most work I've ever put in a marathon training block ever. The nerves were high, and I raced parts of this race with Johan and Isaac, both incredibly talented runners. But unfortunately, I've experienced some bowel issues in the race and was not able to break that sub 3 hour goal that I have trained for. It was definitely disappointing, but really was something that I needed in order for myself to grow even more as a runner. Though probably one of the most disappointing races for myself this year, the cheering game here was so memorable, and I still remember vividly the screams and cheers from all the All Heart family during the race. It was definitely an image that will be kept in my mind for many years to come. From the bustling streets of LA Marathon to the breathtaking cliffs of the Big Sur International Marathon in April, never did I think a race could look so scenic and rewarding. I ran the 21-miler with Justin, and though the course was not the usual course of the Big Sur 21-miler due to the recent heavy rain during the time, this was still a blessing in disguise because I'd say this turned out to be one of my favorite trips or race of the year. So many of my close friends and family came along this trip to run, whether it be the 5K or 11-miler or 21-miler. The fact that my close friends and family were also doing the things I love was something I will never take for granted. And because of the course change from a one-way direction to an out and back, I was able to see them along the way during the run. This, along with the breathtaking views of Big Sur and the serenity the course provided, made this my favorite race or trip for the year. A month later in May, I did my 5K and half marathon PB check back at the home turf of Orange County at the OC 5K and half marathon, where it was a chance for myself to test both speed and endurance in back-to-back events. PRs were achieved in both events, and running back in your home turf never felt so epic. The OC 5K was definitely a bit more special because I was able to run with my entire direct family, and this included my mom, and this was her very first race she's ever participated in, and I was able to cheer them on, and I was so happy to see that my entire family were now 5K finishers. Another small local race happened the following month in June at the Whiting Ranch Trail Race 30K. This was held in Whiting Ranch and was definitely a bit more of an unusual race as it was not a road race, but a trail race. This was my first trail race that has been over 13.1 miles, and this definitely gave me a beating on my legs more than I had expected. I ran this with Aaron and Justin and was able to put in some good elevation gain at this event and place second overall. Then that same month, we were off to Canada for the Banff Half Marathon. It was a chilly and wet one, but very crisp and felt like running through almost a postcard at certain points. I paced my good friend Justin to a sub 140 PR half marathon, and though we both agreed that he could have gone faster, it was just the good amount of effort to nab that PR and also have enough energy for the rest of the trip for some sightseeing. This was one of those races I'd say the trip and area was a lot more rewarding than the actual race itself, but I was happy to have spent this trip with my good friends Aaron, Justin, and Sarah as I taper for what's to come. That would be one of the best races I ever ran at the Grandma's Marathon. And a week later, here we are back at my birthplace of Minnesota, where I ran the 2024 Grandma's Marathon. An iconic race with the Midwest charm that left me hustling for that Boston qualifying time. The training and journey put into this marathon block was a bit smarter, where I focused more on the quality of the training and workouts. I was hoping for a sub 250 time, but realistically was also thinking that I'd probably be around the low 250s. The nerves were definitely high as it was my first out-of-state marathon. Weather was also very unpredictable, so everything was pretty shaky. But at last, the race started and my body felt great throughout the race despite the rain that poured onto the course about the final 8 miles. It was quite unexpected, no bowel movements, no cramps. I cruised and finished with an all-time new PR and qualified for the 2025 Boston Marathon. It was a surreal feeling when I heard my brother shout my name at the finish line, and it really didn't dawn on me until I got back to the apartment. The finish line weather was not pleasant, as my brother Aaron and I both agreed this was probably one of the most gruesome walks and treks back to our apartment due to the weather. Despite the weather though, the race itself was amazing, and I was happy to achieve a new PR and qualify for the Boston Marathon in 2025 at this Grandma's Marathon. After that amazing race, gears shifted and I set out on a training block to attempt to become an ultra-marathoner on the trails, and raced in another local trail race called the Harding Hustle 30K at the end of July. It was a steep constant uphill out and back, so 9 miles up and 9 miles down, a perfect way to get in some trail and elevation gain on my feet. Speaking of elevation gain, with the trails in my sights, I went to my bread and butter of trail run training at the Mount Baldy Run to the Top, held on Labor Day in September. This was a 7-mile trail run starting at about 6,000 feet of elevation up in the San Antonio Canyon and runs up to about 10,000 feet of elevation with a total climb of 4,000 feet elevation gain in about 7 miles. It's one of the most steepest trails I race on, and it never makes it easy for me to run to the top. With trails and ultramarathon training in the block, I still left about 1 day of the week to include some threshold workout, and this was done the same week of the Mount Baldy Run to the Top in September at the Santa Monica 10K Classic. A heat wave had arrived in Southern California at the time, and the course was adjusted to be about 400 meters short of a 10K. But regardless, I was able to put in some good threshold road running at this event along with some good friends. It was a hot one, but a fun race. Then we were back on the trails, and within that same month of September, I've raced my first ever ultramarathon at the Noble Canyon 50K at San Diego. This was not the star of the show, but a training run for what's to come in October. And it really did give me a nice slap on the face of what to expect in ultramarathons. I took this race conservatively and slow and wanted to experience the pain cave that most ultra trail runners talk about, and I did. I even got lost for about 2 miles, which was just a wild experience on the mental game. This had taught me to really come prepared when it comes to being out there on the trails for that long, and had felt a different kind of soreness after the race. I finished this race and glad to say that I became an ultramarathoner. Then, finally, the star of the show arrived. The Kodiak 100K. My most anticipated race of the year had arrived, and we showed up at Big Bear in mid-October. Throughout the training block for the 100K, never would I imagine to put in so much time on feet and gained so much elevation. Marathon training and ultra trail training is definitely different. I ran this race with my current running partner in crime, Justin, along with my number one cheering partner in crime, Aaron, where he did the 15K version. It was a brutal race for me, and to sum it up all in a nutshell, it is definitely not for the weak and is something that I had to put my mental in a place that marathon running doesn't quite take you. Would I do this again was the typical question I got after this run, and even now, about 3 months since the race had occurred, my answer had still been the same, which was, probably not. Ask me again in a few months later, maybe it'll change. I completed the race and was so incredibly happy for myself that I finished. It was also the first time I contemplated hard about DNFing or did not finishing the race, and I'm happy that I didn't. It was then the month of November, and Aaron and I trotted away at a local 5K turkey trot at Irvine Valley College. Ran with a lot of the AHRC family and had a lot of fun running around for a last VO2 max session for the marathon training block. Justin also came out to support, which I was super grateful for and thankful for, and I was able to put in a 5K PR at this trot, though the 5K distance was not exactly a 5K, with about 100 meters short. Coming off that 100K high, I had expected to take some time to recover from it, and surprisingly, I was back and running again after only about a week of recovery, and so I was yet again back on the marathon road training block to attempt my redemption at the California International Marathon in Sacramento, California, held at the beginning of December. With only 7 to 8 weeks to train, I hopped on this training block determined to end the race year with a bang and hopefully carry over some fitness I gained from the Kodiak 100K into this race and attempt another personal record in the marathon. Sadly, I did not achieve that personal record, with only 32 seconds shy of beating my grandma's time, and I was by far actually not disappointed about this race. I was happy, I was joyful, and I was proud of my performance. I met so many friends finally in person, and it was just the best way to end the 2024 running year. I could not have asked for a better way to end the year. 2024 was a year full of growth and resilience, and I'm excited to share another year with everyone in 2025. Stay tuned for so many more running and adventures throughout 2025, and I hope that everyone stays healthy and has their own personal goals that they want to accomplish and continue to strive to be better versions of themselves. Continue to improve, continue to prioritize, continue to cherish those precious memories that you've made with your friends and family. And I hope that everyone had a wonderful 2024 year, and I look forward to seeing what everyone is planning to accomplish in 2025. I know one thing is for sure. There is particularly one race that I am a little bit more excited to run next year, but it's definitely not the only race I'll be running as well. Happy New Year, everyone, and stay healthy.